No. Just make sure I don't go 15 minutes.
We're
under.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Okay, I'm Payne. I'm an alcoholic addict. My clean date is 2/15/2020. I have a sponsor, and I have sponsees, and I work the 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's how I have seen some of the freedom that I have today. I guess what it was like, growing up. I grew up to a drug addict, two parents that were in active addiction. My dad was a drug addict. He liked meth, heroin, and alcohol. My mom was an alcoholic, and she was kind of like an in the closet meth user. And I grew up with four older brothers and one sister, and right. So like growing up, my house was kind of like a flop house. There's always people coming in and out. Right. And by like age of 11 or 12, I was smoking weed with my dad and drinking with them. And, right. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I always looked up to my dad, and then that's how I bonded with him, right? It was drinking, those little Mickeys, those little sluggers or whatever. Yeah, I was drinking those. I was drinking Sparks, Coors, Bud Light, Budweiser, and every here and there, I'd get to hit the joint, and I was like probably 11 or 12 at that time, and so like I thought that was cool because my brothers did it, so I wanted to do it. I wanted to be like them, and I mean, growing up, my mom always held it down, but she also couldn't hold it down sometimes, So I've lived in a motorhome down at a state park. I've lived in a nice house before. I've lived in, just about everywhere. So probably around like 13, 14, I thought it'd be cool to sell weed and drink all the time, and so that's what I did. And instead of school, I focused more on being a productive drug addict, and how I fit in with people is I fit in with that crowd that liked to, smoke weed. I always hung out with the older kids because I thought they were cool, and they would get me stoned and they'd let me drink with them, and they'd probably take my money, and rip me off. And, that's just what I knew was what was cool. 15, 16, I started getting into harder stuff like cocaine and Molly. I tried meth a couple times. I tried a lot of oxycodone. I tried mushrooms. I tried just about everything. And, I was very active in high school, because I was kind of a troubled youth. Even though I smoked a lot of weed and I drank a lot, I still did mixed martial arts, and, I wrestled in high school. And then, I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was 13, and that's kind of what lit the fire under my ass to get bigger, because I lost a lot of weight and I got really skinny and I was very unhealthy. When I was taken to the hospital, my blood sugar was like 987. And I'd lost like 50 pounds. I was skin and bones, and so I was very insecure about myself. So smoking weed and working out was what made me feel good about myself. And then going into my sophomore year of wrestling, I broke my femur wrestling, and I had to go into an emergency surgery, and they gave me an IV. It was full of Dilaudid, I think. Yeah, it was Dilaudid. And right there in that moment of time, I knew this was it. This is what I wanted. This is what I liked. And of course they prescribed me pain pills, and I was in a wheelchair for 3 months, and I was in crutches for a couple months, so I wasn't able to be active, and I had just gotten off probation, so I was kind of just free to roam and do what I want. And I smoked, I drank, I tried some hard stuff, and I think it was like my senior year. I was going into my senior year. I was in Spokane painting a house with my dad, because my dad was a painter for 30 years. And one night, my oldest brother called, and my oldest brother, he's a criminal. He's a career criminal, in and out of prison, in and out of Airway Heights, Coyote Ridge. He's been to about every facility in Washington. I never got to see a lot of him, but I always got to talk to him on the phone, because there was always money on his books to call us, and that's how I bonded with him, and I remember he called and he said, he told my dad that, the cops are here. He had some warrants out for his arrest. And he said I don't remember what he said, if he's coming back or what was happening, if he's getting arrested, And then about an hour later, my other brother calls, and he tells me that my brother Pat got shot by the police and he was killed. And like at that time in the moment, even though it didn't happen to me, and I didn't have to live that lifestyle, I used that as an excuse to drink and get loaded. So like that cocaine, the drinking, the weed, it became more than just a weekend thing. It became an everyday thing, right? Like get out of school, right? Dad picked me up, get a 6-pack of tall cans, a couple Mike's Harder lemonades, throw that in the backpack and go be a menace downtown. And, I just do that, restart, redo it, right? And then it got to the point where, I didn't have any money, so I had to start stealing shit because I wanted to keep doing drugs and I wanted to keep living that lifestyle. And, cocaine's kind of expensive and, I can only steal so many oxycodones from my grandma to trade them, right? Like, so I went to treatment for the first time. I went to Lakeside Milam in Burien. It was an adolescent program, I lasted about 12 days, but I had such a shit attitude. I wanted to fight everyone. I kept leaving. I kept walking away. I kept leaving the facility. And then they finally we're discharging you. You can go home, So I went home and I remember the counselor told me, go try 90 for 90, because I kind of wanted recovery, but I wasn't unsure. I hit probably 3 meetings and I started hanging out with that group of friends again. And, that's when I was introduced to methamphetamine and crystal and, so I'm hanging out in this apartment. I've been up for a week straight and I'm what am I doing with my life? So I think at that time, I got a girlfriend that lives in Port Angeles. So, I might as well just go live with her. Right. And it went okay for a couple of weeks until, I was able to start going back to Port Townsend for the weekend. And then in my mind, I'm I just got to pick up on the weekend and then I'll have it through the week. And that didn't work out really that well because I kept getting caught. So I moved back to Port Townsend. I don't know if you guys have heard of Port Townsend. That's where I'm from. I was born and raised there. It's my hometown, and I had to leave. So, I kind of went on a 4-year run, 5-year run. Everything from stealing, using drugs, lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating. Even got my mom evicted from a couple of houses. I got in some pretty bad fights, got my ass beat pretty bad. And so I remembered I'd gotten arrested, right? I thought I could be a smooth drug dealing criminal and have this girl that thought I was in love with, but every time we were together, the cops got called because we'd fight. And this just happened to be this one time, right? The cops show up, right, and they're like, all right, well, we've been called to this house 25 times in the last fucking month. We're done, and they saw some paraphernalia out, and, I got booked into county jail. And, the funny thing is my dad was in county jail at that time for a burglary charge. And I remember he's calling me on the jail phone, and I answer the phone, and I'm getting cuffed up, and I'm like, yo, Dad, hold up. I'll see you in an hour. And he said, what? And I ended up getting booked into county, right? And my dad's the kitchen trustee out there. So he's serving platters and he thought it'd be cool to give me an extra cookie or something like that. And so, at that point I was homeless, addicted to drugs, right? I was using needles and I was using people to get what I wanted. And I remember my mom went to treatment in Edmonds and I remember she came and found me after she got out of treatment. She came and found me and she's like, well, you're still on my insurance for 1 more month. Do you want to go to this place? And I was really unsure about it. And I went to treatment, right? I decided finally to go to treatment the day after Valentine's Day. Cause that girl that I kept getting in trouble with, the one that kept getting called and the cops on us, cause we were just so compatible that the cops had to show up. I had to go see her one last time, right? And I'm heading to treatment, and I was very unsure what I wanted to do. First few days I just slept because I'd been up for weeks, and I remember they started taking us to outdoor meetings there, and I never heard of that. Right? I got sober at the Linwood Alano Club back before COVID happened, and I've been going there ever since. I found something that worked for me, and I keep going back because, I mean, it works for me. Uh, well, I'm in treatment, and I had to decide if I wanted to go back to Port Townsend. And then somebody's like, "Why don't you go try Oxford House?" So I applied it in Oxford House. And the day I got out of treatment, the stay-at-home order went into place. COVID happened, and I didn't know what the fuck to do. All the meetings were shut down. I was living in a new city that I'd never been to. I didn't know any of these roommates. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a phone. I had maybe like 2 pairs of pants, a t-shirt, a pair of shoes. I had a phone that wouldn't even connect to Wi-Fi. And I struggled for the first few months. And, but like in that 3 months of struggling, Zoom came along, and, I was hitting all these Zoom meetings. And then when there was outdoor meetings or at Mukilteo Beach, I was getting there somehow. I was finding rides, I was trying to get there, I was just doing anything I could to keep my mind off using, because at that point I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't have any kind of step behind me. Like any kind of inconvenience that happened, my first thought, my first instinct was to go get loaded. And, when I'm driving down Evergreen Way, I'm seeing people just smoking drugs out there so openly and out on the streets. And it was astonishing. I was like, what the fuck? Where have I been? I need to be out here. It's just so freely out here. And, I end up getting a sponsor. The Alano Club opened back up. I got a sponsor, right? And I got to work. Right? And some of those promises started happening. I got a job. I went through a few jobs before I found a good job, right? Like I started doing things, right? People started trusting me. Like I started being of service to my community. I started being of service to people that were newer than me. I got a home group. I got a service position. I kept showing up every Tuesday. I kept showing up every Thursday, right? Like when people called and they need me, like I would be there as the best I can be to support them. And, I just remember, man, like I remember just like always waiting till the 6th of the month, every month, for my EBT card to refill for that first few months, and like riding the Swift line to any meeting I could get to. So I'd ride the Swift line to Everett, and then I'd walk 1.5 miles up 196 to get to the Alano Club in the middle of wintertime because I wanted it so bad. I'm very fortunate today that, I get to speak at this hall. Never been here. Super cool people. Like today, like I have a car that's in my name. It has tabs on it, right? Like I have a valid driver's license, right? Like, like I'm not driving a stolen car, and it's not loaded full of dirty needles, and like I don't have to rob people anymore. Like I can hold down a full-time job, and I can be like a pretty productive member of society today. I haven't had to drink or drug for almost a little over 40 months. And, it's crazy where my life was and where my life is today. Like in my wildest dreams, I remember an active addiction I dream about this life I get to live today. And I used to dream about this. And now that it's all came into like in place for me, like I get to like my life's pretty good. And like, I actually value it now, like I started fearing shit, like I started like fear started popping up, but now like I know how to arrest it and like I know let it get to me. Like right now, like I just quit my job and I'm like in the middle of starting a new job and like like I've been unemployed for the last 2 weeks, right? And generally when I don't work for more than a week, I start really feeling down on myself and I start feeling bad, and like I start thinking too much, but because of this program, because of my guys that I work with, because of my sponsor, like I've been able to stay busy. I stay in the book, and I couldn't ask for a better thing. 30 seconds. I'm an alcoholic addict. I was asked to come here tonight, and I showed up. Now I haven't had to lie, cheat, or steal or manipulate somebody in a long time. And And I pay the 8 cent bag fees at Safeway now. That's how honest my program is. Thank you.